In this guitar lesson, we'll work on a really nice sounding guitar solo in the style of Molly Tuttle. So this guitar solo actually goes right along with her version of the song White Freightliner Blues by Townes Van Zandt. And I think this guitar solo is a really good example of how you can use cross-picking in combination with some stock bluegrass licks. You combine both of those things to create really nice sounding and dynamic guitar solo. And also, as you learn this, try to learn it at a very slow pace. Work on your pick control. Try to get each note nice and clean. And then just build your speed up in increments so that way you can get the best technique and you'll be a lot more accurate when you start playing this a little bit faster. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to pull up tablature on the screen, work through this arrangement one line at a time. We've got some really great Molly Tuttle style guitar licks that you can take away from this lesson. And I'll give you some really good flat picking tips along the way. So here's the first line of the tablature for this guitar solo, and we still have our capo on the 4th fret. So let me go ahead and play through this line so you can hear it, and then I'll break it down for you. So throughout this entire line, basically we're holding down this F chord shape. Except we're not going to bar our pointer finger across the 1st and 2nd strings like you normally would for the F chord. We're going to leave that high E string ringing out open, and the pointer finger just presses down the 2nd string. And we're going to be doing some cross picking over the skinnier 3 strings, kind of like this. You'll notice that I'm just putting my pinky down every now and then on the 1st string, 3rd fret. So just keep that in mind as we're working through this. All right, so let's take a look at the first measure. First measure goes like this. We got those pick stroke direction symbols. Down, up, down. Up, down, up. Down, up, down. Up, down, up. So that's the first measure. Notice on that upstroke, right there, about halfway through that first measure, we're going to put our pinky down. 3rd fret, 1st string. So let's move on to the 2nd measure now. Still keeping that shape held down with our fretting hand, but we're going to lift our pinky up at the beginning of it and go. So that's the 2nd measure. Down, down, up, down, up, down. Down, down, up, down, up, down. Had to put our pinky down about halfway through that measure too. So pause the video if you want to work on those 2 measures. Let's play measures 1 and 2 together so you can hear it. All right, moving on to the 3rd measure. The 3rd measure is basically exactly what we played in the 1st measure. Same thing. So we're just going to repeat that little melody for the 3rd measure. But then in the 4th measure, we're going to do this slide. Let's do that one more time. Measure 4. So you notice when I do that slide, that real quick slide on that 1st string, just sliding with our pinky from the 3rd fret in relation to that capo, and slide up to the 5th fret real quick. And we're still going to keep that F chord shape held basically as we do that slide. Because right after you slide up, slide, and then go back down for that next up pick. And when you do that next up pick, you're going to be exactly where we were with that same shape, you know, that F chord shape with the pinky held down. So slide, up, and then just continue with the cross picking. So right at the end of that measure, I'm going to do pick, 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 pick. Last two picks, you got to do the open to the 3rd fret, that pinky. So that's the 4th measure. Let me know if you have any questions on that. You can drop questions in the comment box below the video. So you see right at the end of the 4th measure, we're actually going to do a pull off into the 5th measure, which we'll get to in 1 second. But let's go ahead and play this line one more time and take a good listen. You can practice with me if you want to. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now let's move on to the next line. We've got measures 5 through 8. And I'm going to lead into playing this line with the little last 2 notes from the previous measure, just so you can hear that hammer on, or excuse me, hear that pull off into the 5th measure, just like this. Really cool Molly Tuttle style bluegrass licks going on here. So let's go ahead and break down the 5th measure. I'm going to start with that pull off from the previous measure. So here we go. 5th measure. A little slower. So you see there, the pull off from the end of the 4th measure. I'm doing that pull off with my pinky because we're still holding that F chord shape with our pinky down, one we've been using. So that's the pull off at the end of the 4th measure into the 5th measure, but then we got to pull off in the 5th measure about halfway through, right there. Open, pull off. And that pull off on the 2nd string I'm doing with my ring finger. So pull off with the ring finger to the pointer finger. Ring, pull off. And then land on the middle. Just get up to that point. Pause video if you need to. But when you're ready, let's add on the rest of that. We got another pull off at the end of the 5th measure. So pointer, pull off. We're pulling off there with the middle finger to the open 3rd string. And then finish up this 6th measure. Some basic flat picking there. It's all 8th notes. Got a hammer on there on the 6th measure, right at the end. Just hammering from the pointer to the middle. A little bit tricky, the timing's a little strange, but it makes sense once you put it all together. So I'm going to play that one more time, measures 5 and 6. Pause the video if you need to work on that, and then we're going to move on to measures 7 and 8. So here we go, starting with that pull off from the previous measure. moving on to the 7th and 8th measures. Sounds like this. Kind of a basic bluegrass flat picking lick going on here, measure 7 and 8. So measure 7, we're going to start it off with a really quick pull off with our pointer finger on the 4th string, 1st fret, and just do a pick and a quick pull off to the open right there. That's measure 7. Pull off. Dun, dun, dun. It's all 8th notes other than that quick pull off. The measure 8 goes like this. And for measure 8, I pretty much leave my pointer finger held down the entire time. You can let that note right there on the 2nd string, you can let that ring out. It's a nice overtone, kind of smooths everything out. It's all 8th notes in measure 8. All right, let's play this line one more time, measures 5 through 8, and then we'll pull up the next line of the tablature. I'm going to start out just like we've been doing it with the pull off from the previous measure. Here we go. All right, now moving on to the next line, we got measures 9 through 12.